I want to welcome everybody to the first workshop that we are running as our new organization, the New Music Alliance. And you probably read something about what it's about, and really what it's about is trying to do as many things as we can to help up-and-coming musicians to get their careers going and try and advance their careers in as many ways as possible. So we're here to here today to try to do that in one particular way, but we do that in a variety of ways. One of the things we do also is we sponsor the Valley Music Showcase, which was just the last one we had was Friday night, which is a showcase of some of the best original talent throughout Western New England, basically. So it's all of Western Mass, Central Mass a little bit as well, up to Worcester pretty much, and then south through Connecticut and north up through southern Vermont. So so basically we're also going to be doing other things like some regional tours. We have something we call the Northeast Thunder Tour that we're going to be running, and basically taking bands throughout that region to different venues to be able to sort of bring some cohesiveness, number one, to the region, and also to spread the fan base of all the bands, basically. So it's another thing that we're going to do, and we're starting a radio show as well, which will be happening sometime late next month. I think we'll probably have our first show, and that'll be on Valley Free Radio, and it'll be streamed, and eventually we're looking to move that to a commercial station, and it's going to be all focused on original local music. So so today our panel discussion is how to market your band 101. So the 101 part is, if you're familiar with that from college courses, is where it's going to try and give you a little primer on all the basics that you need to do, and some particular tips and suggestions that some of our esteemed panel can give you from some of their experiences, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. Our format's going to be, we'll ask the panel a question. Each panel member will call on anyone who wants to answer. We'll have a maximum of 2 minutes for each person to talk. When you are close to your 2 minutes, I will let you know by saying beep. And when your time is up, you will hear beep beep. And that means that's it. However, if you hear beep 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 beep, that means that what you're saying is okay to extend for another 30 seconds.
Okay.
Because we don't want to cut that gem off. Okay. All right, and
the music business is very complicated.
This is very complicated, yes. So if anybody have any questions before we start? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to introduce our panel first. We'll actually have our panel introduce themselves. We'll start with Silvana, who's already spoken to you.
Hi, I'm Silvana Gravini, and I'm a marketer. Actually, what's called a cross-market marketer. So though my speciality is the internet, I'm also very versant in print, TV, video, radio, all the other different media out there.
I'm Ben Goldsher. I help manage and run a venue in Greenfield, Mass. called Hawks and Reed Performing Arts Center. And thanks for having me here today.
I'm Carla Racine. I started with a magazine called The Buzz and Honey Pot Productions, and I'm a producer and promoter, and I love under-supported artists, and having a big old festival called Strong and Pleasant on the 6th, 7th, and 8th up in Northampton.
I'm Pete Sikowitz. I play most of the time with a rockabilly band called Flathead, Rodeo, but I also play in a jazz duo called the Jazz Mesmerizers. And I have a bit of a background in marketing and a bigger background in publishing. So I'm very happy to be here to lend my expertise to the proceedings.
My name is Peter J. Newland, and I had a pretty substantial rock band in Springfield in the 60s and 70s. I'm now 70, but that was in the 1970s. We had a couple record deals, did some touring, had a deal in RCA and a deal in Atlantic. And then I spent some time about 12 years in Nashville, writing down there. And so now I'm back in the area. I still play with my band. Matter of fact, we're playing at MGM tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow night from 7 to 9. And I play with another band called RadioX. Good to be here.
Okay, thank you. And my name is Mark Sherry, and I produce and run the Valley Music Showcase, and I'm also now the director of the New Music Alliance.
I wanted to we have a guest here tonight, Peter Frizzell, who's up from Florida, who played in Fat and is visiting for our show tomorrow, but also he played in both Fat and Clean Living, which were two of the first recording bands here. And he's played with guys from Leonard Skinner, Blackfoot, Molly Hatchet, and the Outlaws. So thought I'd bring him down and see if he could share some of his wisdom with you as well.
Absolutely. In fact, Peter, would you like to join us up here, or?
I'll let you guys run with it for a while.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Well, I think we're going to start out with sort of a question that's sort of at I say the 50,000-foot view, and that is, what does it take to succeed in the music business as a performer? So, just generally, anybody want to jump into that?
I'll jump into that. I think that the most important quality you can have is stamina. And I say that as somebody with a pretty average set of talents who outlasted a lot of people that were much more gifted and talented than I. And I just think that the ability to, remain committed, to work at it in your own way, to be able to take a great deal of rejection, to learn to love what you do so that it's not completely dependent upon sort of an immediate gratification and immediate, results and success. My sincere opinion is that the ones that, from our era, when you had to grind through the clubs and you had to grind through the touring, and you just had to grind through obscurity and go through periods where you're doing pretty good and then periods where you're not doing so well. A lot of people quit. Attrition is an amazing solvent, and attrition is an amazing thing in terms of competition because it removes a lot of it. So if you have the will and if you have the stamina, I think that that's a great thing to have going for you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, just to sort of play off of what Peter said, I think that it's a bit of a cliche that it takes talent and hard work and perseverance to make it in the business. But I think similarly, the perseverance part may be the most important thing. You just have to put the blinders on and keep your eye on the goal and just keep going and going and going through the good times and the less good. Perseverance, I think, is probably the most, which is very similar to stamina, probably the single most important thing, just to stick with it, just keep moving forward.
My thought is, I've thought about this actually a lot. I'm not a successful musician. So
Not yet.
I will say this. I think the most important thing is committing to your band. If you're in 10 different projects, you're totally watering down what you're doing. If you commit to the band and the work that you're doing, you're going to stand a better chance at making it, and you need to meet everyone. So getting out there is an important thing, and planning tours. You can't make it out of you can't be a Northampton band that plays Northampton all the time. You have to go on tour. And the bands that I've seen have the most success have saved their pennies, have gotten that van, have called on their friends, have done crowdsourcing, and they've gone on the road. Bella's Bartok is a prime example of that. Very good. Karine, also out of Western Massachusetts, they are touring all over the country. And it is literally sometimes all the way down to just a lucky break. Someone that you didn't even know knew someone that knew someone. So just try to remember all the names, get people's numbers, create your network, and get out of your hometown. That's my advice.
I think that from what everybody said so far, I think the biggest thing I think we can all agree on is commitment. I think if you're not committed, you know, the odds are so slim that you're going to make it. You really need that commitment, and that would be, I think, my 2 cents to this one here. So let's move on to the next question, and that is, what is band marketing, and why do you need to do it?
I guess I'll kick that one off. So I run a music venue, so my experience is for specific shows. I think, you know, what we're doing at a venue, part of it is we're trying to create an experience, bringing in bands, letting people have that experience, but you gotta have people there. So part of that is why you're doing this, to market, to have a successful show. I think as like a local band, marketing, like Carla was saying, getting out there and getting to know people, talking to people is huge, because you get a million things online these days, and like I'm every day I'm inviting people to events, so people are probably sick of, you know, seeing something from me, I'm sure. So I think a huge part of what is band marketing is just getting for your local scene, to create yourself that local scene, because I think as much as going out and toying around to build your bigger fan base, I think having your local fan base is huge, and so just getting out and talking to people is probably the most important. I mean, if it's your family, and then they have friends, or your friends, you tell your friends to check it out, you send them stuff after, you're like, hey, check out my music, and then you go home and you send it to them. I think, you know, just talking a lot about what you do and giving people the opportunity to see that on a local base is important.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else jump into that one?
I think supporting each other as artists in a community is really important too. Like, you can't just stay at home and announce a show online and be like, I'm not going out there. So go out and see your friends and your contemporaries do their music, and go to different places in your community. Open mics are a really fun way to network too. Go there and blow their minds, and then people are like, what's happening? You know?
I think one of the things that it took me a while to see is that it's money with a small m. You know, it has to come from somewhere. So you're going to go through phases if you're in this for a while. There were times when we put cover charges on the door. Sometimes, you know, as a local band, 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks. Sometimes we'd pull in $1,000 a night, $1,500 a night through the door. We're in a sort of phase right now where you'll pay $10 for a beer that someone made in their garage, but you won't pay $2 to see somebody who's been playing music and sweating and really busting their butt to do it. That's got to change, but in the meantime, so you shift, that paradigm shifts, so now the money still has to come from somewhere. The money comes from putting people in clubs, so they're drinking and eating, and then that revenue that didn't get collected at the door is coming there. But when you go out at the end of the night and you put your hand out and you get a paycheck, I think you have to understand where that money is generated and what your part is in that, because without that, people, you know, you're not going to work, period. It doesn't matter how good you are, you know, it doesn't matter how good looking you are or catchy your name is. You have to work on developing a revenue stream and a revenue source, and sort of your reward is sort of you know, at the end of the night, someone somewhere is either looking at a bucket of money and going, these people came in and paid this, or they're looking at a cash register tape and they're going, last Friday I made $200, this Friday those guys played and I made $800, what are you doing next Friday? And so all of these things that people are talking about are things you've got to do, but we are connected. The money just doesn't come from somewhere. There aren't a lot of rich people out there who have money just to throw away. There's a ecosystem here, and that's part of it. And I think understanding that and have the various ways that works are critically important.
Yeah, well, I think really what it comes down to is that, you know, there's a lot of talented people, and for you to sort of separate yourself and get people to recognize you, it takes work, and it's not all about your talent. And you know, it would be great if, you know, there was some meter somewhere and said, oh, hey, this guy's the most talented one, let's send him out across the country because he's so talented. It's just not going to happen that way. And you know, it's going to be that, you know, you're going to have to, you know, work at getting people to come out to your show rather than do one of the 10 or 15 other things they could possibly do that night. And when you can start generating that buzz, that's when, you know, things will start to happen for you. And you know, it's going to take that work.
Could I add like 2 quick sentences?
And then after him, if I could just jump in really quick.
And then after her, if I could just.
So
We've all
I
got
think like, what is band marketing was the question, and why do you need it? I think part of it is figuring out who you are as a band and like really owning that. I mean, obviously that will, I think, evolve as I see bands. They change, they grow like anything. But kind of figuring out what that is. There's markets definitely for different types of bands and different fans for different types of bands. And so I think, you know, really finding what's true to your band and kind of looking at those avenues and seeing how maybe other people have done it in the past a little bit, because, you know, it's always just reinventing the wheel, but putting your own spin on it. So I think kind of figuring out who you are as a band and really going down that, whatever that alley might be, that's kind of a little open-ended, but I think, you know, I go on Instagram, you can hashtag something, you could look at hashtag whatever the hell it is, and it gives you a whole bunch of images that then can describe something. And I think that's a cool tool about Instagram is the hashtags and how it has categorized things. So you can kind of see, okay, this is working for these people, and maybe this will work for my band too. Like, pick up on what people have done in the past in that sort of lane that you're in. Perfect. Sorry.
No, it's cool. So yeah, to like actually to just as a continuation, what Peter said, what you've said, is that a band is a business, you know, and that's a sort of a cliche, isn't it? Everybody knows, they've heard marketing, or rather it's a music business, and everybody concentrates on the music and kind of forgets about the business part, and that can, you know, represents a weakness, right? So now we need to focus on the business, and there's science involved in business. You know, it's not all guesswork. It's like we know what to do, as you say, define yourself. I mean, that's part of your projects, part of what's called your strategy work. You know, before you really do anything, you should be sitting down and thinking through very specific questions about identifying who you are. You put it in words, you put it on a board, but you do it as a group, you know, if you're a band, and just like that. And then you want to define your target market. Now, you think you know who that is, but you have to, what's called, do your due diligence, force yourself to do the work of actually thinking through, well, who is that is our fan base right now? And who do we want our fan base to be? And describe that. And, you know, on and on and on. There's all kinds of questions, you know, and this process helps you form, you know, your strategy. So,
I add something to that. I think that, especially as a young band, business as taking your art, particularly if you're writing original music or creating original works of art, you have to be willing to look at that as product.
Yes,
That's
It's
sold
product.
like shoes and everything else.
exactly like that.
But being able to learn, having somebody in your band, whoever that might be, and you might be that person, but somebody has to learn the business. I had a guy when I was growing up, his father was a jazz musician. Really, these guys were top shelf, but they all had lots of kids. And they had to have day jobs, so they were never gonna be that traveling band and get to that next level. But one of the things he told me when I was in my teens, he said, I can see you're really serious about this. The best thing that you can ever do for yourself before you do anything else, learn as much as you can about the business. Because you have to deal with these people. That's the thing between you and the money that's keeping you alive and paying your bills and keeping a roof over your head. And it's hard for some people to talk to total strangers about, well, you know, why you want to hire my band, but if you at least take the time to get to know these people, they're in business too.
Right.
What's working for them, what's not
Right.
working for them, and what can we do together to maybe we can both
Yes.
make some money.
I think
exactly
I think it's a great point, it really is, because, I think, you know, and I think, Ben, you can really, speak to that too, is that, you know, when you're here as, you know, as a musician, you're dealing with, a club or whatever, you know, venue you're looking at, you're in partnership. Basically, that's really what it is. You know, the two of you are both, like you said, you're both in business, you're both trying to get people in the door. You know, you have maybe a different, you know, focus. You know, you're looking, you know, at your career. But bottom line is that if it works for one side and it works for the other side, that's the bottom line that's gonna
Good
get you to
business.
the next level.
And that also comes back to you a lot of times when you start elevating yourself and getting a little further down the road, that those people that you were willing to work with back then, they remember that stuff. So it's the inevitable up and down of the thing, and you're not staying up here all the time. You're gonna be back down there at some point. And when you can pick up a telephone and call those very same people and go, hey, man, and they remember that. So they'll be more apt to work with you if you were willing to work with them. And, you know, it is the one hand washes the other kind of thing, so that's always a good thing to keep in mind, because as big as you ever get in one area, you're not gonna be up there all the time, so.
I have one
not
other-
down both ends of it, so.
One other brief thing for the younger people here. It's a magical time when you're, you know, teenager, in high school, early college. You're in a period of time where your peers are leisure focused. Remember that my band, you know, broke out when I was, you know, 19 years old, 20 years old. And we really had a really great run, a 5-6 year run where we were like on top or close to the top. And all of a sudden, we were playing better and better, and all of a sudden I noticed that our crowds were getting smaller. What was happening is we were getting older. And when I was in high school and college, all of my friends were out looking for something to do. We got in the band was pretty cool, they hung out with the band, it was cool because they knew the band, they told their friends about it, and you had this whole demographic that was just out there every night on the weekends looking for something to do. People get older, they change their patterns, they change their lifestyle, they get married, you know what I mean, they have children, and all of a sudden, so it's a really good time, and it's a different time, but you have working through your own demographic and your peer system, it's the ideal time to build a base following. That's what I'm trying to say.
Band, brand. Find out what your brand is. Find something, a brand is what sells in marketing, so brand your band. That's a really important thing to remember, I think.
So you,
Do they know what that
do you
means?
want, yeah, do you wanna
I want
explain
you
what
to
you mean by
explain
that?
brand.
I'd be happy to.
She's the marketing guru,
I
but this is
love
the number one
it.
thing.
It's called packaging. You
Mhm.
have a product, you gotta package the product. You don't buy a razor blade that it isn't packaged. And how much do they spend on the packaging? Very much more than the actual product. because I'm afraid it's a visual business. And so it's, you know, it's audio, but it's really visual. So that's where the branding comes in, and consistent branding, I might add. That's why this goes back to why you need to think first and make a plan, then go ahead and build out, you know, what's called all your assets, because you want it to look like a unit. You want a brand, a look that's just yours. It's unique, like your sound. So that's a job, isn't it?
It's a huge one.
Isn't it?
For instance,
It's like, it's as creative as anything else you might
when
do.
you're getting on stage with your band, I've seen this happen so many times. Great band getting on stage, everyone's dressed to the nines, or they have a style that's kind of cohesive. They look great, and up walks, you know, Joe, bass player. He's got a baseball cap on and flip flops. I got a rule. I'm like, there are no flip flops getting on my stage. You want to be barefoot? Fine. You want to wear nice shoes? Fine. If I'm working with a band and someone gets on that stage with flip flops, I'm about to take that flip flop and whack them.
They're called flip-flops, so.
No way. If they're called flip flops, all of them have flip flops.
Well,
But no,
unless that's
it's
your
like
look, right?
you
I mean,
have
if you're
to.
gonna break a rule, break
It's a
it.
dangerous one to wear flip flops on a stage with all those chords. But I mean, it's like very serious. Like you can see the effort that some people are making, and you have to. It's really hard when you're in a band because you don't want to ruffle other band members' feathers, but you should all look great. I think a band right now that has a uniformity, like, you know, I'm seeing Mandy Pacious in the backs from the Mary Jane Jones back there, and they've got a great style to them. Amazing style, and it's cohesive. Eavesdrop is out there, and they have a nice style. They follow it, you know. I think that more than just like a symbol or something that goes on a piece of paper, your whole presentation helps to. That presentation is what people are going to remember. And even if you're all dressed like slobs, at least all be slobs together. If you're all dressed to the nines, be nines together.
Exactly.
But like, you know, I think that's an important part of packaging yourself, you know, and when you look like you've made an effort, people really, people want to go to music to escape and enjoy, and your true fans, they want to be you. I mean, that's what a fan is. They're just like, oh my God, you take them away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you just brought up, I think, is important too, because, you know, when we do the Valley Music Showcase, one of our criteria for judging bands is your presentation. And so many bands just ignore it. They get up there and play their music, and they don't really think about how they interact with the audience. And I'm not saying that every successful musician necessarily does it. I mean, if you ever been to a Bob Dylan show, you're lucky if he ever picks his head up. The bottom line, though, is that a presentation is such a powerful tool that you can use. You know, you can still, you know, have the power of your music, you know, say it all, but if you can use your presentation, it will separate you so much more, and it'll give you that extra little push, and it'll help define who you are.
Can I just say real quick, in marketing speak, what you just spoke to is called your differentiator. And as part of what you're supposed to think about is, well, what is it about my band that is, you know, distinguishes me?
Mm-hmm.
It's me different. I am different from everybody else out
Well,
there.
that's one of our questions that we're
Yes.
going to actually get to specifically.
Great.
So our next one is, what is an elevator speech, and why do you need one?
I think what's important to know about it is there were so many things that were just being spoken about, and if I'm sitting out there, it's going to sound like there are a lot of things that are being thrown around, and there are, because there's a lot to discuss. The elevator speech is part of a plan, so basically it's the most, and forgive us if you already know this, but it's sort of the ground level of what your band is. So obviously while you're determining what to look like and the kind of music you want to play, obviously those are part of a plan, and a lot of the good arguments take place very early on in bands when you decide what you want to look like, what you like the sound to be, and all that, and you basically can start to solidify that idea. And the classic elevator speech really comes from the business world, where you're riding down in an elevator and you have 15 seconds to tell someone what you're about. So you basically want to have a speech a very short couple of sentences that describes unambiguously what the band is about. And also you need the band to agree on it in the beginning, and then when you have that, everyone goes out and sort of preaches from the same pulpit about what the band is.
So can I put you on the spot for a
Sure.
second? Can I hear Flathead Rodeo's elevator speech?
Sure. Flathead Rodeo is a rockabilly band that plays rockabilly music and the music that influences it, country and western, western swing, rhythm and blues, and blues. So that tells you who we are and what we do.
Okay, cool. Peter, you got one?
Well, I have a point. I'd rather say that. One of the problems with
Amen.
bands, you know, is that they're democracies. And so, and a lot of times it's hard to get 4 or 5 people to agree on one thing, so.
You did say that was one of the problems with bands,
Yeah,
that it's a democracy.
right, because when you're trying to figure out what the vision is, you know, everybody's got a different idea, and that
Yeah.
idea will shift. So I think that it's a good, you know, it's a good idea to, you know, sit down together and make it up. And a lot of times I find that you could probably figure out where the vision came from in the Who. You know, it was probably Pete's idea, you know what I mean? You can probably figure out where the vision came from in the Stones. It was probably Mick's idea. And generally speaking, things kind of shake out that way. And I think you're smart to know if you're the guy, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's a duo. I mean, maybe the Beatles, maybe it was John and Paul. And it's also smart to know who the guy is, and that the best sense is, you know, but one way or the other, you've got to focus on one thing and decide what that is and stick to it.
Anybody else?
I think that's a really important point, that there has to be some level of commitment with whoever's in your band, and whatever that vision is, as you said, you rarely get 4 or 5 people, or how many of people to agree, because everybody has a lot of musical influences, but if you try to at least narrow that focus, like you were talking about, but what is it we're selling, and then what are we? And where do you fit into that picture? I learned a lot about business by working with people, with Norm and various other people over the years, but if you figure out what your role is in that, it makes the whole thing stronger. And if you have a level of commitment with the people you're working with, that, okay, we're gonna give it this amount of time, or we're gonna put this much energy towards this, to where you know that everybody is locked into this thing, instead of it always kind of floating around and there's 1 or 2 pieces that may be in or may be out. Because when you're making projections and you're making business decisions and you're talking to people about selling your band, but you got 1 or 2 people in the band that you don't really know for sure if they're all the way in or all the way out, you might not be able to deliver what it is you're trying to sell. And that's an important thing to talk about, and have that stuff out on the table so you know, okay, where do I stand with this guy and this girl or whoever's in your band? Because it would be like any other business. If you have a business plan, how are you gonna move ahead when you have all these nebulous parts and pieces that are floating around? So I think it's important to understand exactly what Pete was saying, that, you know, you have some focus there and some commitment.
And sometimes people, you know, sometimes people are replaced, you know, sometimes people move. Sometimes you have a conversation and, you know, Peter Gabriel says to Genesis, well, you guys think this way and I think this way, so I'm gonna go over here and do this. And you guys, they ended up both, you know, blowing it out, you know, multi-platinum organizations. But I think that, and those are the tough meetings, when you gotta tell somebody, you get to a certain level and your best friend, your brother, you know, who your sister's boyfriend, you go, sorry, you know, this isn't working.
You have to say, sorry, no flip-flops on stage.
Anyway.
By the way, not sorry.
Just no flip-flops on stage. Yeah.
All right, well, we've got a sort of a big question now, and that is, what are the key components to include in creating a plan to market your band? And how do you prioritize those components? So maybe we can have people address maybe one of those components at a time. And so you're creating a plan to market your band, what are some of the components?
Again, the elevator speech sounds silly, but it's extremely important because it's the succinct way of saying who you are and what you're going to try to do.
Have a genre. If it's a couple, have a couple genre. At least it's a direction.
Mhm.
Well, you need a website, you know, you need a place that you own electronically, that you can direct all of your social media and, you know, all of your traffic to. I think the prevailing wisdom is Facebook is good enough, and I think we know that Facebook is not good enough. They can change their mind anytime and leave you completely out in the cold after you've tried to build up, you know.
I think that,
Likes after, you know, a certain amount
I
of time.
think that's a great,
I mean,
totally.
and it's like, and, you know, when you own your own website, you can really invest, and nobody can ever touch it, it's yours.
I think it also makes you look professional.
And it is professional, yes, it is professional.
I would say along the lines of that, email list is huge because that's
Totally.
like direct
The
to
next thing.
the people who are invested in you. For me, like marketing a band always seems like it's for a show because that's what I do. And so for me, it's like, okay, make sure we get the posters, make sure we get the Facebook event, make sure band, if they're local, picks up tickets so they can help distribute. Whatever ways we can creatively get the word out in a local sense. If you're a touring band, I guess like what you could do marketing for shows is like see if you can get radio, who are the right people to talk to in that area, and then social media because that goes across the globe. So
yeah, develop your press list. Make a document, have your press list, develop a group of all the people that you're sending out that you're doing the shows. And it's like, it's a funny thing. So many times you think, oh, I don't need to put out a press list for any one show. But if you just get in the habit of having a press release, it helps to get you noticed. And the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. So if you're playing around, do that. Also, a really cool tool I've seen bands use is I've seen bands link up with other bands in this area from other states and places using like Reverb Nation. They've gone and they've looked at bands and they've said, well, these guys are really hot here, or through Bandcamp, and they see where they're claiming to be out of. Even if they're out of Western Mass, they're either saying they're from like, you know, they're saying Western Mass, or they're saying Northampton, or there's something. So you can, if you're going outside of here, outside of the Valley or Western Massachusetts, find the band that's doing great in another area and network with them and do gig swaps. It's a great way to market. You go in front of them and get the sweet spot of the bill. You know, get the middle, get the beginning sometimes at a show. Don't, you know, do something creative there. But as far as marketing goes, get your EPKs in order. It's a simple thing. Get it in order. Get a current photo. Everyone has a great phone on their phone. Has a great camera on their phone. Get a friend to take a damn picture of you. It's at least one good thing.
And a video, I think.
Yeah.
Like somebody, you can like have your songs on there, but having something on YouTube is, even if it's just you as like your band practicing, like I think for live especially, I'm always like, let me see a video. Send me a video. And I'd like seeing a music video as well as a live video.
Ben had gone through a good litany of the things that need to be done, and just from a practical perspective, one thing that I think is very important I want to mention is look to your internal resources first of all. If someone in your band is a good photographer or it can write or is a good graphic designer or anything like that, those things are really important. So 'cause a lot of the time, as Pete was saying before, there's a lot of, in Flathead Rodeo, we often think of it as about 70% business and about 30% music. And you're asking musicians to think with both sides of their brains, which is hard for anybody, not just musicians, because no one got into it creatively to do the business stuff. But to make it a less onerous task, there are things that you can handle internally that people actually want to do. Again, your drummer may be a graphic designer, or one of the guitarists may write. You need to sort of tap your internal talent first to make all of those things like poster design or doing videos and all that happen. There's a question from the floor. I don't know.
Well, we're gonna take questions at the end, unless you have something that you think is really pressing.
Not super pressing, I was just wondering about like the specifics of your EPK. Like what components are you looking for, and do they differ from maybe like something that you send to booking venues versus press?
Whenever I go to look for a band that's cold, I've never heard of them, and I'm just like, I've got a great idea, and I'm like, oh my God, I need a band that's like fits into this this niche, this genre to round out this bill, because I like doing really faceted, multi-genre bills, because I'm crazy like that. And I will go, and if it's easy to access, where everything's just in order, or there's just, even on your website, or just a link on your Bandcamp, on your Facebook, most places ask for all the things you need. Get a photo, get a couple good songs, a little video, nice and simple. If you've got some press, every time you're in the newspaper, save that link. Every time they mention you in some bill, just save the links. And also keep track of all of your past shows, because that's part of an EPK, all the past shows you've done. And try to keep track of your numbers. Like if you did a house show, the house show scene is so big in Western Mass right now. Like as a promoter, if someone's bringing in like 200 people to one of the places out in Hadley, you better believe I'm paying attention to that. Believe it. And just get all those little pieces together in one place that you can send out. And it's not that hard to do. It's a little daunting at first, but Sonic Bids, I don't really use it anymore, but they had a great model. They had like a checklist that you could check everything off on. But having a nice single page is what they call it in the business. It's a right, single page?
Looks like a landing page.
Well,
Is one page, is that
No,
what you're referring to?
not on a
Like a
website. It's
one
called
sheet?
One Sheet.
Oh.
One sheet for a band. And do you want to explain a one sheet?
Yeah, everything that Carla was saying, it's sort of the repository for it. So if you have press or generated press, it's an opportunity to use a small portion of it there. It's who's in the band, what their background is, how to contact the band, where to find them on YouTube.
Maybe a
about
printed
their
version of your
No.
elevator
Resume.
speech, probably.
It
Well-
is printed but digital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's a
so, right.
resume.
It's basically just it's like the 5 Ws. What do you really need to know about the band? Where have they played? What kind of music they play? Who's paid attention? That kind of stuff. Anything that you think is going to be important. For example, July of 2017, Flathead Rodeo won their round in the Valley Music Showcase, and you bet that was part of our promo kit. It's just our list of accomplishments. It is like a resume, your list of accomplishments. What have you done? Have you played, your dream club? Have you done well in a competition? Have you played wherever your audience or wherever is important to you? Have you done it? Put it down. It tells something about the band.
Yeah, One Sheet is a PDF that you send out to a booking agent and attaches at the bottom, and it's literally a one-page thing, and it has a picture. It has a little description of your music. It has maybe a couple highlights of a critic or any kind of press you've gotten. Or it could even be the opinion of, say, this guy at a club,
You're
you
great.
know? Just, yeah, something like that. It could be someone
Bengals here.
within
You're
the industry saying something, but it's one sheet, and you can click on different parts of it, and it'll take
I'll
that
say it.
person you're asking for a gig right to all those places to see, oh, click there, there's the YouTube. Oh, click there, there's the Bandcamp. Oh,
And can I
click
just say,
here.
YouTube is seriously important, not just because it's video and everybody loves it, but because Google is very, very aware of, Google has 200 plus different criteria that they look at when they're searching, crawling the internet. And so when they're trying to figure out where to place your band when somebody's doing a search, they're checking out all the criteria. And one of those is YouTube. They own YouTube. So do they prefer it when they're looking through, who are they going to rank on top of who? Yeah, absolutely. So it's really going to, just as a matter of fact, the more YouTube videos you can get up there, and they don't have to be full-length songs. They can be, 30 seconds, 15
Your
seconds.
Instagram
Actually, I don't know if
clips.
you want to do a whole song. You want to tease your audience, not give it away. They have to come to the show. You know? So, it's just put out little bits. Just make sure it's excellent. Very, very little. Just make sure it's just very good. And definitely YouTube.
One thing that I think got mentioned by almost everybody here on the panel is gigs, where you've played. And so often, you'll go on a band's either Facebook page or their website, and they have almost nothing listed about where they've played. And I mean, if you've truly not played anywhere, that's fine, I guess. But if you have, you want to tell everyone every gig you've done. I mean, you can even make the ones that had 5 people sound way better than that. The bottom line is when I go up and look for a band for my showcase, I'm looking for bands that have had some experience, have been out there somewhere, and haven't just played in for friends or whatever, but they've been out there somewhere showing that they want to get ahead. And that's something that any club owner, when they look, they want to see, oh yeah, they've had some good experience playing clubs, playing parties, playing wherever. The bottom line is list everything, and don't take stuff off after you've played somewhere, past gigs, or you want that whole list of past gigs, and keep all of your your present and future gigs up there. Get them up there as quickly as you can. Let people know that, because I know it's tough. It's not easy to to always go up and update all that stuff. But when you get another gig, get it right up there. You want to give all your fans and potential fans that opportunity to get out to see you.
I think what's also really, really important is you have to kind of leverage what you've got along the way. And leverage is a really important word. So, for example, let's say you've never played out. You still might be able to get a quote from someone who works for one of the newspapers, or you can talk about your musical backgrounds. If you're a 21-year-old graduate from Berkeley, that's a wonderful thing to put up there. It says something about the band. So at every level, even when you're just starting out, to come up with a one sheet, leverage what you've got. You really have to leverage everything you have, because it's going to be different when you're first starting out than if you've been a band for 5 years, but you still have to get started.
And you don't need to be long-winded. People's attention spans are like poof.
I'm a big believer in human contact, because I think all of this is great. My first band was built on benefits completely. There's another phrase that's used in the commercial business world called loss leader, and that means that you lose money or you play for nothing. And I know it's easy to play for nothing now because nobody wants to pay anything. But to me, benefits are a key piece of it, and so to me, I would put together a plan, on your year plan, to where you say, okay, we're gonna do whatever we've got to do for the X amount of time, and we're gonna play for nothing, but we're gonna play for a reason. And go to someplace and say, what if we come in here, and you haven't sold your show out yet? We're gonna play for free, we'll do that for this many months. And then you're going to get us a job, and you're going to put us in first. You got to get in front of eyeballs. You got to get in front of bodies. You have to, and that helps to build that critical mass. But along that way, the people that you are doing this with, you're creating sort of a barter system. You're building up some equity and saying, hey, dude, we played a whole bunch of free shows. We did a whole bunch of bad nights. We played in your club when there was nobody there for nothing. How about putting us on? And then you've still got to go out and fight for it, but you're going to have something on your side. So I'm just a big, plus the fact is you got to play. You have to have, because at the end of all of this stuff, you do all this stuff, your band sucks. The only way to get your band to be good is to play a bunch. So those two things fit together. So play for nothing for a while, play for a little bit, play for food, whatever you can pull off. But you got to be playing, and while you're playing, you're in front of people, and you're creating relationships with the people that you're working for, and they're going to know. Yeah, those dudes. They go, who are we going to stick with so-and-so? Those kids that play with us 4 or 5 times have been doing that for a year. Let's throw them a bone. So that to me It's kind of what, the remarkable digital universe is around us, and these tools are absolutely true. But until we go full virtual reality, you know, it's me, human being, playing to you, human being, and we can't lose sight of that basic element, which is what this whole thing is all about, is people playing to people. So get in front of some people and play. You know, with me, it's like I'm in a weird situation. I had a big band. You know, we played for thousands of people. I had 2 big record deals. You washing your car? I'll come over and play. You painting your house? I'll set up and play. What time do you want me there? I want to play. I have a new band. I'm building my new band up. I'm hearing things now that I need to do. I got to do them all over again, just like Peter said. But the key in the middle of all of it is play. And as long as you're going to play, put it as part of your strategy and say, how do we go from nothing to something to more?
Okay.
You know, there has to be that level of commitment there, like you're all in.
That's when you find out who wants to play, who
You gotta
don't.
be all in, and you're gonna have people coming in and out of the band, like Pete said. And if you know that you've got a core of people that are willing to go that extra mile, to do whatever it takes, to eating a ham sandwich for 6 weeks in a row.
I got to interrupt because the Skinner movie, did you see the Skinner movie that's out? You want to see a bunch of guys that were committed to freaking playing.
Well,
And
that's the perfect example
it was
of
in-
what
yeah.
everybody imagines a band to be when you're growing up, is you get to play with the guys you came up with. And you're gonna go out and you're gonna take on the world and you're gonna win that fight. It's a rare thing that it happens.
But watching them do that is not pretty and it does not look fun. I got 6 guys in a motel room, you know, they're all eating, you know, fighting over the same chicken leg, you know what I mean? And doing it over and over again. And then finally, when Al Cooper saw him for what he said, these guys have played so much. He said, I just turned on the tape and they played and we had a record. He said, but I have never seen a better picture of how you got to drive and how you got to be committed than that band, because it is raw. They had a shack with no air conditioning on the side of a river down there, and they just spent all their time in there, and it was pretty crazy. It's a good thing to see.
Yeah.
You have to be willing too to really look at yourself and look at, you know, and examine yourself and figure out what strengths you have, because artists tend to be ego-driven to some degree, just to be in it. But to look at it that same way, but a little bit more realistically, where, you know, okay, this guy's good at this one's good at this girl can do this, and play on those strengths. You know, work that stuff that you know you can handle because this guy's good at that, or that one's good at that. That stands to reason with any business, for that matter. You play your strengths, you try to cover up the weak parts, or at least strengthen those weak parts if you have a way to do that. But that takes a hard look in the mirror to do, and a lot of people find that to be one of the hardest parts of the whole thing. But if you're able to do that, you can overcome so many different things. And it builds character, and it also builds your confidence.
Yeah.
To where you can go anywhere in the country, not just in your hometown, your home area, and have that same kind of confidence in front of a room full of total strangers, because that's what you're gonna have to do. At some point, you're gonna have to go into a room with people that aren't your buddies and aren't your friends, and they're not your family, and they're not gonna be nice to you if they don't like you.
Because playing on the road, when you're playing local, it's a real different thing. You're going to be surrounded by friends and family. When you go on the road, that is your friends and family, your band.
I got one more thing on this, and I think that got us our second record deal. We always formed coalitions, and I think Carla brought this up before. And I know that a lot of you guys, a lot of kids are doing a lot of stuff on the road and just getting in bands and traveling long distances, and I think it's great, and Carla brought up some people that are doing very well with it. But there's a piece of that does not have to be so hard, I think. We found Clean Living and Fat, one band was from Amherst, one band was from Springfield. They had a great club, we had a great club. We went up there and did a show with them up there. They came down here and did a show with us down here. We found a band in Pittsfield, Good Friend Coyote, the same thing. We shared that, and the interesting thing is that going to Hartford is almost like going to England, you know what I mean? But we have this tendency to just stay in our hometown. And so I agree, this has already been said, don't want to be redundant, I agree that you've got to move out, you should move out like Julius Caesar in concentric circles so that the drives aren't that far, you can get back home, you can conserve money, and you can sleep in your own bed. But you also form a coalition with a band there. Go down there when you're not working, go down there, hang out, find a band that you like, that you get along with, say, hey, what do you we'll bring you up here and do that. And so when I was looking for my second record deal, Toy Caldwell's band was, Marshall Tucker was playing at the Civic Center, and they bribed somebody in the, and we had just done we had a RCA record in 69 and 70, and we got dumped from that label, and we made our own record in 75, and then right in 76, I bribed my way into the promoter's office at the Civic Center, and I said, my name's Peter Newland, this is my record, and you need to sign my band. He said, you're not supposed to be in here, but he kept the record. And he called me back a month later, and he goes, I never would have signed your band, he said, if you just played in Springfield. He said, but we found out, because we were having, the other thing that we were doing is we were tracking the units. We found out that you're selling records in Worcester, you're selling records in Pittsfield, you're selling records in Hartford and Springfield. So that tells us that you probably would be a good band, because we know you're not just playing to your friends. But the reason why we were able to do this is because we had formed coalitions with bands from out of town. We traded off our strong things, built them, here. And that deal, Clean Living and us ended up with a record deal out of that. And good friend Coyote from Pittsfield got really close. So the good news is, as much as the romance of touring, I'm not getting in the van. You're young, you're strong, get in the van. Spend as long as you can in there, But the good news is that to get the same effect, you don't have to go 1,000, you're not going to go Ohio. All you got to do is go to New Haven. And that, to me, when you get tired and hungry, home, having mom wash your clothes and getting a square meal, sleeping in your bed is a pretty good thing.
I was once told by, I gotta add this in, I was told by, so everyone's familiar with Dinosaur Jr., maybe, in
Yeah.
here? Okay, so you know what they told me? They were hated in the area when they came out. No one liked them, and they went to Connecticut. And then they went out of the valley, and they were discovered out.
Well, great story, Nirvana.
Murph will say that. He'll say, we had to get out of the valley to get people to fall in love with us, and they did. And when you're looking, right now we live in an age where you can see all these bands that you dig from other places, or these bands that they're touring. You can go back and look where they played, look at the places they're playing, and if it seems like it's a similar fit to you, reach out or contact some of the other artists playing there, saying, we'll come down and support. We'll support, just gas money. We'll support. I just got 2 bands from Canada on my festival because they're like, we're going to be in the area. And I'm like, I have no idea what you sound like, but okay. And, it turns out they're going to stay at my house.
All right, let's
move
move-
from
I wanted to
territory
move on
territory
to the-
territory is good. Very good.
I want to move on to the next one, which is actually a pretty basic question, and that is, how do you know you have the right band name?
Flip-flops.
That's a great name.
The Flip-Flops.
That is the worst jam band ever.
Everybody's flip-flops.
Pete?
Well, I think it. Did you say it was really simple? It's sort of like
Basic.
everyone always in bands always puts so much of a emphasis on this. It's sort of like having a building and only thinking about the weather vane. But I think I don't know if you ever really know you have the right band name, but I do think that you can certainly do things. I think it's very important for bands to have some, and everything I'm going to say, there are a million bands that have broken the rules, but I always like to think that what I really loved about the Rolling Stones and the Beatles names were it told you about the music. So the Beatles were admirers of Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Get it? Beatles, Crickets. They also had a beat. So they told you a little bit about what you were going to hear. The Rolling Stones, very blues-based when they first started out, and obviously it's a Muddy Waters song about a Rolling Stone. So those are good, and then there's Procol Harum, which is a whole other thing, which doesn't mean much of anything. But the point is, for most of us in this business, if your name is going to be on a poster or it's going to be bandied about, it should say something about what they're going to hear. Flathead Rodeo, maybe you don't know what Flathead Rodeo is, but you know it has something to do with a Western theme, something to do with hot rods. And that's a lot of what the band is about, you know, sort of country music and all that. But it's just a way of getting the message across very quickly of what it is, as opposed to a band name that we thought was really clever, or as an in-joke, or as we always like to say in the music end of the business is, clarity should win out over cleverness, because more people are going to get something that's clear as opposed to something that's clever and obscure. So the bottom line is, in my opinion, the name should tell something about what they're going to hear.
The thing that I can't stand, and I guess maybe once you hit a certain level, you get to this point, but there's bands' names out there that you have to type the band after it, or like it's just ungoogleable pretty
Right,
much.
right.
Is like because there's something else
Good name
that's
for a band.
there. But it's weird because like the Beatles. I mean, I guess they added the, but if you were to type in Beatles, you'd probably get something else. But maybe not.
At this point,
you probably get their
yeah.
music.
Right.
At this
So
point,
it's hard to
yeah.
know that, but I run into that where I'm like, I can't find this band. Why can't I find this band? It's probably because I spelt it wrong, like Raspberry Jam. But that's definitely something, you know.
Ask a good friend if people are making fun of your band name, if you have a question. Also, make fun of it yourself and find all the ways you can make fun of your own band name. And then if you're really good, to heck with it. Just be that completely outrageous band name. But try to keep it to not, like, I had a friend who just named her band, and it was like a the and a thing, and then it had a dash with two other words. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I can't even fit you on a freaking, you won't even fit anywhere. I gotta make a whole poster just for
Possible
your
to
name.
remember.
All
It's
right.
like-
Pick it and go with it,
Mhm.
too. Because I see a lot of, like, new bands. I've had bands come and go on our stage and be like, this is our band name, but we're working on new band names. And it's like, all right, well, if you want to, like, make it a thing, maybe it's just, you know, they're just playing to play, which is sweet. But if you want to really make it a thing, pick the name and stick with it. Don't change it down the line, you
Yeah.
know?
We were always told that our band name was a really bad name. You know, it was self-deprecating, and it was a term, FAT was a term, and we actually, some guy named us because he kept saying, you know, the fat car was a nice car, and a fat, you know, shirt was a nice shirt, and he said, you guys are fat, you guys are fat, you guys are fat.
That's
So we
synonymous with awesome.
we took the name, you know, and on that, and so the record companies always struggled with it. But in the final analysis, I don't think it had anything to do with, you know, how far we went and how far we didn't go. So, you know,
I think it is a good idea if you can find a name that does, as Pete was saying, have some kind of a description, so it gives some idea of what your music is like. I mean, so if you can't, you can't, but if you can and it works, I think it's a good thing.
Think of it as an escalator speech.
Yeah.
That's even a more concise version of an elevator speech.
Or
So-
have
So
it-
one of the things that we mentioned earlier that I said we would get back to was, what else can you do to get your band to stick out from other bands?
Publicity stunts. Viral publicity stunts.
Did you say fire breathing? Is that
No,
what it is?
viral stuff.
I think the coalition thing is a really good one. Finding other bands that are good, maybe working with them in some way. That's an easy way. That like there's a fan group that likes you what they do, and you're kind of might not be the same, but somewhere you can kind of play off that. I think in like hip hop, people do it all the time. They do features, is what they do a feature on a song. So it's like one artist works with another artist, and then they're known
Yeah.
because of that.
I think, to turn this on its head a little bit, I think one way to get your band to stick out from other bands is to not overthink sticking out from other bands, and to spend more time looking internally about the things that you do well. Then inevitably, it's like style. If you try to come up with a crazy style, it may not work, but if you're truer to yourself, what makes you unique and plays on your strengths, more times than not, that will win out. So it may not be as hard as you think.
I have a surefire, 100% guaranteed way to make your band stick out from other bands. Songs. writing songs that are, and working hard on, you know, I think you've got, you know, you're in the music business, you guys are, you know, girls are playing, but working hard on creating those songs that are memorable, you know, studying what makes songs memorable, studying what, you know, asking yourself, you know, what are your favorite songs? Why do I like that song? Why did I like it when I first heard it? Some of that is unknowable. Some of that is just chemistry. Some of it is just, you know, Zeppelin was amazing at doing that. Writing Got a Whole Lot of Love, this 2.5 minute thing that you just was seared in your brain that made them so much money that they could write a record like Presence and you couldn't even name one song on it. Every song was 8 minutes long and you couldn't tell when it began and when it ended. And they were just working their art, but it was all built on finding those ideas that create memorable, you know, melodies, memorable, you know, what if they're small stories, memorable verbal hooks. But think of the great bands. Close your eyes and think of your favorite bands. Why are they your favorite bands? Why do you still remember them? Because the guitar player was a great guitar player? No. The rhythm section, which drives the live performance, you know, is the most important thing of the live performance. But the reason why everybody is still talking about the Beatles, and you don't have to Google their name, is because of the songs. You know, the same thing with Pink Floyd, the same thing, you just go right down the list. You had a band like 10 Years After was built around a phenomenal guitar player. Name me a 10 Years After tune. You know, I could probably, I'm 6, so I could probably name 2. But it's, you know, to me, the one thing that we've been dancing around and not gotten close to is, it's the songs. And one reason I think why we have sort of held on to our marginal audience here in the area is because when we go out and play, and we tried it. We came back and said, we got guys have different bands and they're better than Fat was. And people said, no, we want to hear these 24 songs that we heard when we were in high school. And it's the songs that are going to stick in people's minds and have them coming back and make them remember you. It's not the only thing, but it's it's really, in a way, you know, it isn't music, it's songs. Sooner or later, it begins and it ends.
I feel
Yeah, I think another thing that I wanted to mention is that I think you, Silvana, you were talking about, obviously, about the website earlier, and I think having a really dynamite website is something that will definitely nowadays make you stick out. You know, having a website, when people look at it and it looks really professional, it's something that will elevate you easily, very quickly. And, you know, sometimes you're gonna have to live up to your website if your website is so damn good. And that's a good thing.
If I could just add to that, thank you. I think to stand out very often, you just really need to do the work, because that's the hardest thing to do, and to be consistent about it. But I think that alone would make your band stand out, because frankly, quite a lot of them just aren't doing the marketing work. And then we're talking about marketing.
Well, if I could say something, you know, I think it's what's really crazy about the music industry is that there is no more artist and repertoire. There are no more record deals. That stuff is like, I would love to be an A&R person, going out and finding talent and being like, oh my God, let's get a photo shoot together. But you guys have it in such a different way. Musicians right now have it in such a different way because there isn't even that support system of money to even though they're going to glean off of you and you're going to owe them money when they sign you and you're going to have to work your butt off, but you don't have that support. So how do you find that support? And this is the balance. When you're in your community here, one thing you can do is get involved in your community events and don't oversaturate your area, but find out who you want to align yourself with, because there are some big dogs in Western Massachusetts that put out music. Don't limit yourself, but find your listening rooms and find those places that you want to play that are in line with like your philosophy, those different, you know, groupings of people what they're doing and like get involved, but get involved in the greater community that is here, because unfortunately, you know, like I said, there's no agents sitting in rooms anymore going, I want to sign the next best thing, and it's a lot of who you meet. Half the time it's luck, you know?
I think also, just to get back to the question, which everyone sort of hit on to a degree, but if you basically, if there are 10 things that you need to do, and you've sort of heard a lot of them about, they're the non-musical aspects, the more of those you do, the more you will stick out successfully from other bands. I think that's very important.
Recently said something in the past few months. He had sold 5 million downloads, and he got a check for $1,500.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes about what the music business has become and how difficult it is for an artist to extract money out of their art. Whereas in the old days with the record deals, the record companies paid bands up front. They paid for the studio time to go in. You worked that up and you paid them back for that. But they were also extracting the lion's share of that money too, and the artists did much better back then. If you're getting a fraction of a penny off of every download that you get, how long is it gonna take you to buy a ham sandwich or pay your light bill? So the next thing you have to ask yourself is, how committed am I to being a musician? What do you wanna do for a living? What defines you? Who are you? And would you do this whether there was money there or not? Are you doing this for fame? Are you doing this? What's the reason? I made up my mind when I was about 11 or 12 years old exactly what I was going to do for my life, and that's what I did. The money, if that's why you're there, or the fame, or any of those other things, you're probably in it for the wrong reasons, because there's no guarantee for any of that. If you get a level of enjoyment out of doing what you do, whether it's for the money or not for the money, then you're doing the right thing. And I think that goes with anything you choose to do in life, but if you're not willing to make that level of commitment, you might want to think about, what am I gonna do for a backup here? And,
All right, well,
Just
we-
want to add one quick thing to that. I think that it's incumbent upon each of us to become, you know, you're probably not going to want to be a manager, but you need to develop a layman's knowledge of every aspect of this business. And, you know, it's true what Peter said about what Peter said about the change and the revenue structure of the band relative to music. However, their shift has gone from selling records and collecting money off of airplay and performance and however that happens. But it's like the rubber glove of Jello. There may not be as much money, but licensing has now opened up. Miniseries, there's so much more, you know,
you
video
can get your
games,
own
all that.
product out there now, too.
Right. You can self-produce and self-distribute, but the other thing, and once again, getting back to the song and getting back to that publishing revenue, all of a sudden, the licensing has exploded, and it's like making money on the cover charge at the door, or playing in a restaurant where you increase, you know, food and liquor sales and you get a piece of that. You know, but you have to be tuned into that piece of it. It's, you know, whether you like it or not, because you have to be able to follow that shift. If you keep chasing that dog won't hunt anymore. So you've got to look where the new one is. And the one thing, there's a couple things I will say. The one thing is, you can do business. Do business like you play your guitar. You know, don't think you've got to go to school and go and get QuickBooks and become an accountant. You know, you're a creative person. Your organic creative process helps you create. You can apply that process to business and at least develop a knowledge that helps you keep track of things, helps you protect yourself. And I will shamelessly plug and say, there's an organization here called the Western Massachusetts Songwriters Collaborative. If you're writing, if you're interested in writing, if you're interested in meeting people who are all about writing and about, you know, the nature of the songwriting business, then please get on Facebook and join and come down to one of our open mics and meet with us, and we can talk about that piece of it too.
Okay. So we have one more question that we are going to address, and that is networking. Why is it important? how do you do it, and what's the most effective ways to network in the music business?
I think saying hello, I mean, just going up to people and talking to them about it is, I mean, that's networking at its finest, but also being in the right place at the right time. I think, like, being here is like you're around people who are on a similar thing. It's not being afraid to plug what you need to plug, if it's yourself or an event or something like that.
And online, there's a lot going on
Online
about,
is,
you've
yeah.
heard like influencers, right? So there are people who, have driven tremendous numbers of followers up on their social media outlets.
It's also really important to see other,
And so you want to be,
oh, sorry.
sorry, that's quite all right. I'll just make it real quick. So you want to connect yourself up with those and figure out a way to get, access to their platform as a way of exposure for yourself. Sorry, go ahead.
It's also important to go out and see music. It's important to also see music. The most important thing is probably to see allied bands or similar bands, because you can do a bunch of things. Number one, you can get to know the people who are going to see them. There are, as Peter said, and it's a pretty common thing we do. I started something called the Valley Twang Cooperative, which is roots bands. So we are able to put a bunch of bands under one roof, but I know these folks from meeting them and going to listen to them and say, hey, here's what we're trying to do. And it's working with them so that don't negate fellow musicians for networking. I mean, obviously, it's good to know club owners and all kinds of things. There's no question. But don't forget about the bands and let them know you're going out to support them, because they'll go out to support you.
Yes, very important. I always get so aggravated with some people that I work with when I'm just like, why aren't you coming out tonight? You have a show in 2 weeks. You have a show in a week. You haven't been out. Like, if you want to drive up just in your local area, if you want to drive up, because it's like what you can drive to within 30 miles. You want to drive up attendance at your local shows, you got a big CD release coming out, you go out there, you get yourself a little handbill. You print it up, you tell people to come, and you say hi to everybody. Everybody. You say hi to people you don't know. You put yourself out there, and you get them to come. I've seen, I'd worked with the band Outer Styley for a while, and I'd never seen them network so hard, and they were just fabulous. I mean, they got people to their shows that had never even heard of them before, and by the way, they have a very big mouthful of band name. And people would come. So when they were out there networking, they did it, and I would see the results of just people that we literally met on the street 3 days earlier coming to their show.
Yeah.
That's
Because
doing the work.
they did it.
That's doing the work.
And
it's
set
it's not rocket
goals.
science, it's just
Set goals.
doing it.
Yeah,
But
I'd
also
say
learn
like
to love the process, because, that's, again, it's that 70% of the bottom of the pyramid. Those sorts of processes may not be the sexiest thing or the thing you enjoy the most, but they're really important, and embrace it, because it's going to be your future.
Throughout your whole career.
That's right, your whole career. We all know people in this room we've known a very long time.
So I think one of the key things, because I've had to get into sales, for quite a while. The key thing I think in networking that people miss is it's really I like to say relationship as opposed to networking, and I don't think you necessarily are always looking for a quid pro quo. What you're after, I think, is just building quality relationships with people. Meeting a musician like yourself who is probably playing, they might not be coming to your show because they're always working, but surrounding yourself with a network of quality relationships. And oftentimes what I find is that what comes to me is not from the person that I met, but maybe someone he or she talked to, who talked to somebody, and then all of a sudden something walks through the door. But building and keeping quality relationships, and it's not just because you're going to give me something, just because you're a good person to know, and I want to be a good friend to you as well.
And it's cumulative.
Yeah.
It's cumulative. It may not happen in the next 10 minutes or the next hour, but we've all had experiences where someone contact you, you're like, oh my God, how on earth did this person find me? It's because there were 2 people removed or 3 people removed. So, but you've got to get out there and you've got to push it.
Something too is set goals. Like if you're sitting here and you're like, my goal is I'm going to play Green River Festival, or I'm going to play the Newport Folk Festival, or I'm going to play this Bluegrass Festival, or I'm going to play this festival. Well, you're not gonna get on the bill if you contact them a month before, but if you tell them if anything goes wrong and you still contact them, and you put all your contact information, you might be surprised, you might get a phone call, because I've had bands that are like, I wanna play this festival, and then I've gotten a phone call from the guy at the main gate who's like, we just lost a band, and can you get a band here in 2 hours? And I'm like, yep, I can, and there, boom. And set your goals, and there are application processes, and that's the business part that's not glamorous. Set your goals and apply to all these places. Also, if you're wanting to get into a thing, make sure that you're playing places that are on their radar. And maybe it'll take you a little bit. There's a bunch of online magazines around all the big cities. There's Vanya Magazine out of Providence area in Boston. There's Delhi Magazine that's out of the whole country. Delhi Magazine is an online magazine. There's a bunch of online magazines that you can submit your music yourself. And if you feel weird about promoting yourself, I am a very huge proponent of fake it till you make it. Come up with the best manager's name you can come up with. Get them an email. That's your manager. That's your booking agent. You know, make up something like cooking booking. Like, make it up and have it go to the email. And that way it's not on you, the artist. That's like, you're not contacting that person as like, oh, it's so-and-so of this band. It's like, no, take on that alter ego and get those emails. And, you know, I know maybe it's like slick or something, or shady, or whatever you want to call it, but it's basically like, it's very hard to be rejected.
It's creative.
It's hard to be rejected as an artist. It's hard to not take it personal. And when you get that crappy rejection email, the best thing to do is like, just be butter. Be like, thank you, you know, so much for opening my email. You know, I'll let you know what's happened with the band for future things. We'd love to be part of this. Like, compliments get you a long way. Sometimes people don't even know who you are, but they get this nice email. They're like, the heck? And maybe they'll get another one in a month. And they're like, God, you know, and then, you know, third one later, you're just like, I got to do something. These kids are so hungry. Or these people are so hungry. Oh, my God, I got to see them finally. But keep trying, but keep track of it.
I would say most professional bands have booking agents, so I think that's a great idea of, like, having some sort of somebody.
Buffer.
Yeah, it's a buffer. It's a nice little buffer. I've definitely seen people do that and, like, caught up on it too. Like, been like, wait, you're local.
After you got to
you're
know them.
local, and then yeah, I know you. My 2 cents would be 20 minutes a day on marketing. Like, I think too many people think like, oh, we need to do this big thing.
Right.
But like 20 minutes a day, it's more than anybody does.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like
exactly.
I think it's a great-
Right
when
there.
when
That's
we
a great
when
point,
we
you
tell
know.
people to market shows, we're like just 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day, and it's just gonna like the repetition of it
It's
will.
cumulative.
Yeah, exactly. It's the long term.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master. That's like literally every PhD, every doctor, everything. And you could go 10,000 hours right out of college, go for 8 years. That's 10,000 hours. You're not really, I also have a theory that you're not really a band until you've gone 5 years. And I've seen the difference between someone that just started playing with each other for 6 months to someone who like knew each other. They played together. If there's a link that's 5 years deep, it doesn't matter if you were like 12 to 17, 17 to 23. It doesn't matter how old you are either. Like, fire the judge on age in this industry. It's been reinvented.
All right, our last thing, and I think, Ben, you've already kind of, addressed it in your way, which is if there's one thing that you would like people to take away from this workshop, what would that be? And I'll ask each person to just say
No,
that.
You're not gonna start with me, are you?
20 minutes a day.
He's
20
got
minutes
it.
a day.
20
I
minutes
like
a day.
that.
I'm going to be doing that tomorrow.
Cardio, upper body,
The
and
question,
20 minutes
the
marketing.
trick is really getting people to do that, because it's, you know, you say it and then somebody's like, yeah, well, I'll do that, and then I don't know, it's really not much, but it's you can get so
Oh,
much
it's
done
huge.
in a short period
20
of time.
minutes is a good
It's
amount
hard
of
to-
time. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I think I would say, get a fan club president on your team. Make a fan club and get a president. Assign that person, you're the president. And that's a great way of getting some of the job of marketing off of your plate and onto somebody else's. a really important part, you know, the stuff that has to do with growing a fan base, the stuff that has to do with social media, the stuff that has to do with marketing, really. So you might wanna do that. That might be a takeaway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Give them some perks too.
yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
I have two pieces. One is buy your own domain. Don't ever listen to anyone say they're gonna do a favor and buy your domain on.
No,
Never let
Never.
anyone buy your
Never.
domain. If they're doing that for you,
they're crooks.
totally. Oh yeah, for $10,000. I've known it's happened to many people. Buy your own domains, set up your own accounts. Even if someone says they wanna help you, set up your own stuff.
But put it in your name.
Set up your own stuff, all your own name. And the other thing I would say is, like, you know, grow your network, go out and see, like, if you love playing music and you have a band, go at least once a month to an open mic and just drop a few tunes and get yourself seen by people that don't always see you. Luthier's Co-op has a great open mic. 4 and 3 East Hampton's happening. I mean, there's a great one on Tuesdays.
Western Mass Artists Collaborative has a.
Yes, Peter has a club. You know, there's a lot of great little, like, networks within here, and you might meet some people that you never thought you'd meet and that you didn't even know what they did, and it'll surprise you. And just expand your horizon. Play with everyone. Challenge yourself, because you're going to grow your network that way, and you're going to stay in the public eye in this little valley. And then just sit there when you're bored at night, and instead of being like just scrolling through, research other bands that have a similar genre to you, that are playing in a different area. Like, go, if you're like, I want to play at RadioX, go look at who's playing there, and maybe you'll see some bands that, like, oh, I think I know them. And, you know, network, introduce yourself to other bands on social media.
Thank you.
Very simple. Come up with a strong plan, which involves a lot of the marketing that we discussed, and execute the plan without rethinking if it's the right thing to do. Because a lot of the time, if things aren't going the way you want them to go, you'll second guess yourself. But come up with a strong plan and execute the plan, because the amount of time you'll spend flip-flopping and changing your mind, you'll be like treading water.
Yeah, Yoda says there's no try, there's only do and do not. So don't
Yeah,
say you're
Yoda said
trying,
that.
say you're
Right.
doing,
Yeah,
say
so
you're
basically
doing.
come up with a plan, execute, and just
and
put the
don't-
blinders on. and
Don't
move
speak
ahead.
negative to yourself. Every day say, I'm doing it,
Yeah.
I'm doing it, I'm
And
gonna
eat
do
your
this.
vegetables and
Marketing.
make your beds.
Hey,
Marketing I am. Marketing
Do
I
it.
am.
that's how you talk to yourself.
It's
Peter?
so true.
Perform, and write, and write, and write. You're not gonna go anywhere playing somebody else's.
Yeah, if you don't have a product, you definitely are going nowhere.
And I would say, you know, probably what, you know, we started this thing out with, which was, you know, marketing is not necessarily, to a non-marketer, a very sexy and, you know, glamorous type of thing to do. So most of us would probably just say, well, I'd like to get somebody else to do it for me. And that's great, especially if you can afford it, or if you can find a fan club president like you were talking about to help you with that. And that's a great idea. But the bottom line is that you need to be cognizant and aware and knowing what's going on. If somebody's working for you, don't just give them the reins. Make sure that you know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's for every level, you know, of the business, not even just the marketing part.
Right.
But I think with the marketing, since that's our focus here, I'd like you to come away with that, is just know that you need to have a hand in that. Don't just give it to somebody else and let them run with it.
Yeah,
Here's-
yeah.
Oh, sorry, there's one important marketing tool that people are just becoming aware of. On Facebook, when you play shows with other bands that are like, say you're opening for a bigger band, you want to talk to them about, like, hey, you know, you make each other hosts of things. Well, there's this little thing called making someone an advertiser. And I've just started really getting into this practice recently. You can become an advertiser in target audiences like Ben, Hawks and Reed. You're a band that's playing there. Maybe you want to give one of the guys up there access to target your audience, or you could target their audience, or someone that's working for you. Target each other's audiences. Go deeper behind all those folds in Facebook, and you can become what they call an advertiser. You don't get to post on the pages, but all those likes they have, you can target their audience and they'll see your stuff. And it might cost you $5 or $20 or $30, but you can do some good, there's some behind the scenes advertising. Go and do a tutorial on how to advertise on
That's
Facebook.
huge.
Yeah.
That really will really actually bring people to your gig.
Yeah.
We
And
do-
Or
that
the
will
club you're
work.
playing in, sorry.
We do that
Yeah.
all the time. Well, like
Yeah.
when we bring a bigger act in, we ask for their advertising access and put $20 or $50 or whatever it is
It's
behind
direct marketing.
Mhm.
These people have already liked that band, so they're probably gonna like yours if they knew about it.
Yeah.
So,
it.
and
Merchandise.
it's cheap.
That's
It's
good.
just downright cheap.
Nobody
Yeah.
said merch. but
Merch is really fun.
I think
Merch
merch
is
is
important.
important because it's like that connection that somebody gets to take home with them. And I think when they see you live, if you don't have merch, it's like almost a waste because like for that one person who actually can who actually will get the merch, that like it means it's like you're connecting with the band in such a way, and it's a revenue stream.
And it's free
especially-
advertising.
And especially if the merch can be a CD.
And
Great, or
Well,
T-shirt, a hat,
I will
whatever.
tell you this, I'm not
Does that too?
supporting vandalism, but I will tell you, if you want something to stick, get some stickers and slap them all around. Everywhere. Every club has bathrooms littered with stickers. So even if you haven't played there, just get your sticker up,
Yeah.
put it. If you see a bunch of stickers somewhere, put it there.
That's an
You
old-
know?
Yeah, it's the difference
But it
between
does work.
And it
if
works.
someone
It
has
really
heard of a
does work.
band and hasn't heard of a band, the first thing we ask about, someone will say about a band is, yeah, I've heard of them.
I've heard, or they just
Or-
saw
or
it, stick it
I
on the
never
back
heard
of
of
that
them.
sign,
Yeah.
walking in to go do their laundry. They're like,
Somebody put that damn sticker on my car.
Yeah.
no
Or
cars.
don't be embarrassed
No
about
cars
being
are
a
personal
human
property.
billboard for your band. So,
All right, well, is there anybody who has a question? Yeah?
Hi, well, thank you all, first of all, for your time, really rewarding to be on the receiving end.
So who are you and what brings you here?
So I'm Chelsea, I'm 1/3 of the new folk trio Ona Kanoa, based in Shelburne, Mass.
All right.
So
Cool.
it's a little folk trio from the hill towns, but we're trying to get out.
You're- They're lovely, Peter. You will love them.
I got business cards, I'll pass them out.
Good.
So I guess kind of, I have a few questions, but just for now, how important would you say a physical CD is? We haven't put out, like, my band hasn't put out any official music yet, and so we're kind of in the works now to do that for the first time. But, you know, as a new band with low revenue stream and a small budget, or, you know, whatever budget of the pennies we're saving, are physical CDs like a priority to be investing your money in after the recording, after, you know, all the mixing and mastering? Where should we be putting our small dollars?
Crowdsource so you can grow your dollars, because I know that your music is lovely, and I'm pretty sure that you could raise easily at least $2,000 between your friends and families and your audience, and that's going to cover. As far as CDs go, it's a very weird thing right now, but CD companies also make download cards for you. Like if you go to disc makers, you go in there and you can go to disc makers. Have you looked at that site yet?
Yeah.
So have you-
like CD Baby.
Have you gone through and set up a template to get a quote?
Yeah.
So there's different price breakdowns, and the sooner you get it to them, the price breaks down even better, and you can decide, do I want rap on it, do I want Eco Pack, do I want this, that, but they'll also give you download cards. And I do think there's a merit to a CD where maybe not everyone's getting it, but it's something to put in people's hands. So if you look at it like a very expensive marketing tool, it's wonderful. Plus, also on the road, when you travel, you might sell two, might sell one, that's money for gas. Could be a sandwich, could be a pizza, could be whatever. I think both are important. I think downloads and CDs are important, but do not give your music away for free. And also become part of guilds, writing guilds. If you're really a writer, become part of guilds. I know a lot of musicians that get checks from their writing. So I mean, that's something, but don't give up on a CD yet. A lot of cars still have them. I mean, tapes came back, for goodness sake, recently. Vinyl, they said, was going to go away, and now that's king. You can also find small batch vinyl printing, which I think is a really nice market right now.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, you should do crowdsourcing before you give up on any idea.
And CDs are very important if you do house concerts, because when people go to house concerts, which is, by the way, just a great way to make money, and if anyone going there, basically, they pretty much want contact with you. They want to walk away with something from that show. And there's nothing better for them to walk away with than your music.
Another marketing tool, I just want to say it quick. If you make a handbill, it's so easy. They'll set them up for you at any coffee shop. You say, I want a 4-up. And you take your poster and you bring it down smaller. Don't throw it away. Even if your show is passed, one side could be blank still. Keep that in your bag. If you see someone you don't have anything on, you could be like, oh, this is a show we just played. And you could write your email on the back. You never know. Always keep something that has your band name in your purse, even if it's past. It just is like, oh, hey, yeah, well, you have no idea how many times
All right.
that has happened.
Thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap this up now, unless there's anybody else who has a question quick. Yeah?
Are there any shows that are not worth playing?
No. I'm gonna tell you a story. I played with Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee at Rusty Nail. Old blues guys, classical old blues guys. It was Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving. And I was hanging out, someone was settling up, and I said to Brownie McGee, I said, what are you doing for Christmas? He goes, I got a gig in Cleveland. I said, you playing on Christmas? He said, I don't take my own birthday off. Why should I take somebody else's? Then he said, if you turn down a gig, he said, you're going to be sitting home someday with no place to play, and you're going to, one thing that's going to haunt you all night long is that time that you said no. So, yeah, unless you're going to be in bodily, danger, play.
Don't play in lightning.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got those things, but.
Hi, this is Mark Sherry, Executive Director of the New Music Alliance, and we sponsored this workshop on how to market your band 101. We hope you found it useful, and we hope you join us for our future workshops that we'll be running, and also for some of the events that we'll be doing throughout Western New England. We are based in the Western Massachusetts area of Western New England, but we cover all of Connecticut and southern Vermont, as well as the western half of Massachusetts. In any case, we hope to run across you very soon. Take care and good luck.